Today I'm making a simple quiche using freshly milled flour, and I'll walk you through exactly how I get a tender, flaky crust and rich, creamy filling. I'm starting by milling croissant and soft white wheat on a fine setting. While that's milling, I'll go ahead and add salt to the bowl and give it a quick stir. Don't worry about taking down the recipe here. You can find a full printable version on my website at grandmas'ironskillet.com. I'll drop a link in the comments. For the fat, I'm using half lard and half butter. Make sure it's cold. If you don't have lard, you can use all butter. Then I cut it into the flour using a pastry blender until the pieces are about pea size or smaller. You don't want this fully blended. Those little pieces are what give you the flaky crust. Next, I add a splash of cold apple cider vinegar and then cold water, about 2 tablespoons at a time. I mix in between each addition. I'm watching for the dough to start coming together. You don't want to overwork the dough here. That's why I'm using a dough hook. Today I'm using about 6 tablespoons of ice cold water. I live in an area where I get all 4 seasons, so it varies from time to time when I make my pie crust. Sometimes I use 5, sometimes I use a full 7. Once you start to feel a little resistance, switch over to your hands. Bring it together into one cohesive ball, but don't overwork it. That's what keeps the crust nice and tender. Then I cover the dough and let it rest in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes. While that's chilling, I generously butter my pie plates. I like to use stainless steel here. This recipe makes 2 9-inch quiches, and stainless steel handles freezing and thawing better than glass. Once the dough is cold all the way through, divide into 2 equal pieces. Roll it out on a silicone mat, no extra flour. Adding flour here can make the crust a little gritty. If it starts to stick, you can place parchment paper or plastic wrap on top and roll it out that way. You're aiming for about an 11-inch circle. I like to pinch the edges of my dough together just to make it a smoother circle. Flip the dough over onto your pie plate and make sure it's centered before peeling back the mat. Smooth out any air pockets. Start with the center and then work your way up to the sides. Then shape it into the pie plate. Once all the air pockets are out, for the edges I flute them by placing my finger on top and pinching the dough around it as I go. Repeat with the second crust and then dock the bottoms with a fork. Line with parchment paper and add pie weights. This makes sure that the center of the crust doesn't puff up. Bake at 350 degrees for 15 minutes. Then remove the weights and bake another 10 minutes until lightly golden. While the crust is baking, prepare the filling. I'm whisking together 8 eggs and 500 grams of heavy cream. That's for both pies. You can add a teaspoon of salt here if you'd like. I'm hand whisking this, but a stand mixer works great too. Today I'm using leftover bacon and freshly grated cheese, but this is really flexible. Quiche is perfect for using up leftovers. If you're using vegetables like onions or mushrooms, you'll want to saute them first, and any meat should be already cooked. I'm adding a total of about a cup to a cup and a half of filling here. Once you've added your filling, pour the egg mixture over the top. Bake at 350 for 45 minutes or until the center reaches 165 degrees. Let it cool slightly, and you can top it with things like salsa, fresh herbs, or sour cream. There's a lot of directions you can take with this. Since this makes two, I usually freeze one for later. Let it cool completely, then refrigerate it overnight before freezing. Wrap it airtight and then place it in the freezer. When you're ready to use it, just thaw it overnight in the refrigerator. If you like this video, you can watch more right here on my channel, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button.